please, what did I do?
A bus full of young men and women, fresh from completing their year of national service in a quiet rural community, found themselves hurtling towards a terrible fate. Their journey back to the bustling city of Atlanta was marred by a single, fateful decision. In the sleepy town of Peachtree Creek, nestled just outside Atlanta, a group of service members had spent their year teaching at the local high school. They were a vibrant bunch, their laughter often echoing through the village paths, and they quickly forged strong bonds with the friendly locals. However, as the months turned into a year, a new feeling began to stir within some of them: curiosity, and then something more. One bright afternoon, while strolling along the dusty roads of Peachtree Creek, they stumbled upon the impressive gates of the king's palace. Its towering entrance and intricately carved statues filled them with a sense of wonder. But it was something inside that truly captured their attention: a radiant golden crown shimmering within the palace walls. Its brilliance was almost blinding, a magnificent sight to behold. "That's pure gold," whispered Omar, the most ambitious of the group, his eyes gleaming with avarice. "Can you imagine the price it would fetch in Atlanta?" A fellow service member, Imani, shook her head, a worried frown on her face. "Don't even consider it, Omar. I've heard tales about this village. They say the king's crown is protected by ancient enchantments and spirits. No one who attempts to steal it has ever escaped harm." But Omar merely chuckled, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Enchantments? Spirits? Those are just old wives' tales meant to scare people. This crown is our ticket to a life of luxury." A few of the others felt a pang of temptation, but many were gripped by fear. "We shouldn't meddle with it," Imani pleaded, her voice soft but urgent. "The people here deeply respect their traditions. Let's not invite trouble upon ourselves." Yet, Omar's mind was made up. "If you're too scared, fine. But I'm taking it. And when I'm living in opulence, don't come seeking my help." Days melted into weeks, and soon, the end of their service was imminent. On their final day in Peachtree Creek, while everyone else was busy packing and saying their goodbyes, Omar made his move. Under the cloak of a moonless night, with the entire village lost in slumber, he slipped into the palace. Two other service members, unable to resist the lure of quick riches, accompanied him. The crown sat there, glowing like a dream's greatest treasure. "It's even more stunning up close," one of his accomplices whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. "Hurry," Omar urged, swiftly snatching the crown and concealing it within a black nylon bag. "Let's get out of here." When they returned, Imani spotted the bag clutched in Omar's hand. "You didn't," she gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Oh, but we did," Omar grinned, a triumphant smirk on his face. "And I have no intention of returning it." "You're making a terrible mistake," Imani warned, her voice laced with genuine fear. "You don't understand this village or the gravity of what you've done." Omar simply shrugged, dismissing her concerns. Mistake? The only mistake was not seizing it sooner. The following morning, the service members boarded a chartered bus, ready to depart Peachtree Creek. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the villagers waved goodbye, their faces alight with smiles. Imani and a few others quietly offered prayers for a safe journey as the bus began to move, but Omar and his friends paid them no mind, laughing and playfully teasing Imani, calling her Mama. Omar settled into a back seat, his illicit bag tucked beneath him, a smug grin plastered across his face. He could already envision the wealth that awaited him in Atlanta. But as the bus rumbled down the dusty road, the crown's golden glow remained hidden, a silent testament to the avarice that had sealed their destiny. The bus continued its journey, bouncing along the uneven road, carrying its passengers away from the serene village. The morning sun cast long, dancing shadows of the vehicle on the reddish-brown earth. The air inside buzzed with cheerful chatter and jokes about their year in Peachtree Creek. Omar, however, remained quiet in the back, his bag held firmly beneath his seat. The crown within seemed to pulse with an unseen energy, though only Omar could sense its unsettling presence. Suddenly, the bus lurched violently and then groaned to a halt. The engine sputtered, then fell silent. "What's happening?" a passenger called out, peering through the window. "The bus has broken down," the driver mumbled, stepping outside to inspect the engine. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead as he fiddled and cursed under his breath. Hours crawled by under the scorching sun as the driver toiled. Finally, with a cough and a roar, the engine roared back to life. A wave of relief washed over the passengers, and they cheered as their journey resumed. But their joy was short-lived. Soon after, a loud pop shattered the air. "A tire has burst," the driver announced, his face contorted in frustration. He quickly set about replacing it, muttering prayers. The passengers grew restless, fanning themselves against the oppressive heat. Yet, still, no one noticed Omar's bag or the hidden crown, whose silent existence cast an imperceptible shadow over them all. With the tire fixed, the bus was once again on its way. But as the miles passed, an unsettling silence descended upon the group. The wind that had once felt warm now carried a distinct chill. Omar glanced around nervously, but kept his silence. Then, without warning, the brakes completely failed. The driver's panicked shouts filled the air as he desperately wrestled with the speeding vehicle. "Hold on tight," he yelled, but his voice was swallowed by the terrified screams of the passengers. The bus swerved wildly, careening off the road before plunging into a deep ditch. The crash was deafening. Dust and shattered fragments filled the air, mingled with agonizing cries. When the chaos finally subsided, 3 young people lay motionless, their dreams and laughter extinguished like candles in a gust of wind. Others moaned, their bodies bruised and broken. Rescuers arrived swiftly, pulling the injured from the mangled wreckage. But as they counted the survivors, one person was unaccounted for: Omar. Perhaps he was thrown from the bus, one service member suggested, his voice trembling. Or caught in the fire, another whispered, shuddering. But Omar was not among the dead or the severely injured. He had slipped away from the crash site, clutching his bag tightly to his chest. His legs carried him far from the wreckage, his heart hammering with terror and a rising tide of guilt. The golden crown, still hidden within his bag, felt heavier than ever, as if it knew the blood that had been shed because of it. As Omar fled, the looming shadow of his greed followed close behind, patiently waiting for its next chance to strike. Omar raced away from the scene of the disaster, his legs moving with incredible speed. After hours of frantic walking, he finally spotted another bus heading towards Atlanta. A wave of immense relief washed over him as he boarded, his precious bag clutched tightly against him. The new bus glided smoothly along the road at first. Omar leaned back, already envisioning the fortune he would gain from selling the stolen crown. But before long, the bus began to shake violently. "Driver, what's happening?" a passenger cried out. The driver slammed on the brakes, but the bus refused to stop. It swerved sharply to the side of the road before jerking to a complete halt. Passengers tumbled forward, shouting in alarm. "It's the brakes," the driver muttered, shaking his head. "They've failed." Passengers groaned as they climbed out, leaving the driver to inspect the vehicle. Omar remained silent, his heart racing. He knew something was deeply wrong, but he still refused to let go of the crown. After several agonizing hours of delay, Omar finally reached his home in Atlanta. His bag felt impossibly heavy as he stepped inside. His youngest brother, Leo, a cheerful boy, ran to greet him. "Brother Omar!" Leo shouted, his laughter like sweet music. Omar forced a smile, patting Leo's head. "Go and play, Leo," he said quickly, heading straight to his room to hide the crown. But misfortune, like a stealthy thief, had already crept into their house. That evening, as Leo bathed, he slipped on the wet floor. His head struck a wooden shelf, and he fell silent. By the time the family discovered him, it was too late. Leo was gone. the house filled with heart-wrenching wails of sorrow. Omar sat quietly in a corner, his face ashen, his hands trembling. He hugged his knees, as guilt gnawed at his heart like a relentless rat. As night deepened, strange cries began to echo through the house. These were not cries of mourning, but something far darker, ghostly whispers that sent shivers down the family's spines. The wind howled like a wild beast, and the air grew heavy with an unseen dread. "What is happening?" Omar's mother whispered, clutching her wrapper tightly around her shoulders. Then came the next devastating blow. Omar's father, a man as strong and proud as an ancient oak, suddenly collapsed. His body stiffened, and he could no longer move. "It's a stroke," Omar's mother cried, her voice trembling with fear. A local prophet arrived swiftly, his face grave as he examined the father. He spoke in a low, steady voice. "Someone has taken what does not rightfully belong to them. Until it is returned, this family will know no peace." The family exchanged confused, terrified glances. Omar sat frozen, his heart pounding like a drum. Who took it?" the prophet demanded, his eyes scanning each member of the family. "I didn't take anything," Omar lied, his voice barely a whisper. The prophet narrowed his eyes but said nothing more about Omar. He left the family with a stark warning. If what was stolen is not returned, this is only the beginning. As the family grieved, troubled, and worried over their father, the air in the house grew thick with an unspoken terror. Omar slipped into his room, his heart a tangled mess of fear and stubborn ambition. He unwrapped the crown, its golden surface gleaming in the dim light. "It's just a crown," he muttered to himself, his voice trembling. "Tomorrow, I'll sell it, and the money will fix everything. It'll all be fine." But deep down, Omar knew the terrible truth. This wasn't just any golden treasure. His greed had unleashed a storm he no longer controlled. As the Atlanta sun rose, a heavy weight pressed on Omar's heart, yet his craving for wealth remained undimmed. He carefully wrapped the golden crown in a dark cloth and tucked it into his bag. "Today I'll sell it," he whispered, his voice shaky. He crept out of the house, leaving his grieving family behind, and headed for the bustling Sweet Auburn Curb Market. The journey was long and dusty, but Omar pushed onward, the bag on his back growing heavier with each step, as if the crown itself resisted leaving Peachtree Creek. Then it began. From the corner of his eye, he saw a fleeting shadow dart across the road. He froze, turning abruptly, but saw nothing. He quickened his pace, but the shadows persisted, clinging to him. "Omar," a faint, yet familiar, voice called. He stopped dead in his tracks. Slowly, he turned and saw a figure in the distance, Leo, his little brother. But Leo's eyes were empty, his face pale and ethereal. "Return the crown, brother," the ghostly figure whispered, its voice carried on the wind. Omar stumbled backward, his heart hammering against his ribs. He turned and ran, but more spectral figures appeared, their faces etched with sorrow. Some he recognized from the bus crash, others were strangers from Peachtree Creek. When he finally reached the market, Omar thought he was safe. But suddenly, from nowhere, fierce masquerades burst into view. Their tall, vibrant forms loomed over him, their whips cracking menacingly through the air. "Thief!" they bellowed. "Return what you stole!" The first whip lashed across his back, and Omar screamed. Another strike, and he fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but the masquerades showed none. "Please," he cried, "I'll give it back." Yet, no one else in the market could see the spectral figures. To the onlookers, Omar was thrashing on the ground, screaming at invisible tormentors. "Is he mad?" someone whispered. Omar's voice, raw with pain and desperation, rose above the market's din. "I stole the king's crown," he shouted, tears streaming down his face. "I stole it." The crowd gasped, whispers turning into angry murmurs, then shouts of outrage. "He stole from the village king." Still being flogged by the unseen masquerades, Omar staggered towards a prophet's house near the market. His cries filled the air as the whips cracked like thunder behind him. He burst into the prophet's home, collapsing onto the floor. The room smelled of cleansing herbs and smoke, and to Omar, it felt like a sanctuary. "Help me," he cried, clutching his aching back. "The masquerades won't stop. They're flogging me." The prophet, a calm and stern figure, watched him with piercing eyes. "What did you do, boy?" Omar trembled, his voice barely a whisper. "I took the king's crown. It's here in my bag." The prophet shook his head, his voice low and grave. "Do you realize the gravity of your actions? That crown is intimately linked to the spirits of Peachtree Creek. You have brought a devastating curse upon yourself and your family." Omar fell to his knees. "Please. I'll return it, just make them stop." The prophet reached for his tools and began a ritual. He chanted softly, waved dried leaves, and sprinkled powder over Omar. For a moment, the air grew still and the masquerades vanished. "You have 3 days," the prophet declared, his tone serious. "Return the crown to the king, or the curse will consume you and your family entirely. This is your sole chance for redemption." Omar nodded, clutching his bag. But as he stepped back outside, the masquerades reappeared, their whips cracking with renewed fury. Omar screamed in pain. No bus would stop for him. Drivers simply thought he was deranged. With no other choice, Omar began the long, painful walk back to Peachtree Creek, step by agonizing step. The masquerades relentlessly flogged him, their voices echoing in his ears. "Return the crown," they chanted. Omar's journey was a torturous ordeal, his legs weak, his back raw from the lashes. But he pressed on, knowing that the crown had to go back to its rightful place, or he would never find peace again. For 2 relentless days Omar walked. His body was a wreck, his back a mass of raw wounds from the invisible whips. His legs wobbled beneath him, but he kept moving. The path to Peachtree Creek seemed endless, and the crown in his bag felt heavier than the world itself. As Omar finally approached the village gates, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The masquerades, still trailing him, cracked their whips one final time before dissolving into thin air. Omar stumbled into the village, his clothes torn, his face streaked with tears and sweat. The villagers were waiting. The king stood at the palace gates, flanked by his elders and guards. They had known he would return. The golden crown always had a way of calling its thief home. Omar dropped to his knees, his body trembling. He unwrapped the crown and gently placed it before the king. "Forgive me, your majesty," he sobbed. "I was blinded by greed. I truly believed I could escape, but I have paid a terrible price for my foolishness." The king gazed at Omar, his face calm but stern. "You have brought immense sorrow upon yourself and your family," he said. "The spirits do not easily forgive. You have returned the crown, but the cost you've borne is heavy." Omar's heart sank as he remembered Leo and his father. Tears streamed down his face as he bowed his head in profound shame. The villagers murmured amongst themselves. Some were angry, others felt pity for Omar. But the king raised his hand, silencing them. "He has returned what belongs to us. His own greed has already punished him more severely than we ever could." Just as Omar prepared to leave, a messenger arrived, panting and wide-eyed. "Your father has passed," the man gasped. "He died this morning." Omar's knees buckled, and he collapsed to the ground, his grief crashing down on him with merciless force. Even the villagers lowered their heads, feeling the immense weight of his loss. Omar left the palace, his heart heavy with an unbearable sorrow. Each step away from Peachtree Creek felt like another stone added to the crushing burden he carried. He thought of Leo's laughter, now silenced forever. He thought of his strong, proud father, now gone because of his reckless act. "I cannot go home," Omar whispered to himself. "What home is there for me now?" He wandered aimlessly until he reached a wide river near the village, its calm waters reflecting the sky like a mirror. Omar stood at the edge, staring at the gentle ripples. His mind raced with memories, the joy he had stolen from his family, the lives lost in the bus crash, the fear he had inflicted upon the village. The crown, now safely back in its rightful place, had taken everything from him. "I have nothing left," he said, his voice barely audible above the river's soft rush. Without hesitation, Omar stepped into the water. The river embraced him, pulling him deeper and deeper until he disappeared beneath its surface. The ripples faded, and the water returned to its calm, quiet state. When the villagers learned of Omar's fate, they shook their heads in sorrow. His story spread far and wide, whispered by grandmothers to their grandchildren, told by fathers to their sons. "Let this be a lesson," they would say. "Greed is a fire that consumes everything it touches. It spares no one, not the thief, not their family, not their future." And so, the tale of Omar and the stolen crown lived on, a haunting warning to all who dared to defy the traditions and spirits of the land.